Honorable Speaker, Your Excellencies, Member of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I'm very humbled to be here today with my three colleague laureates, and it's really great to be part of this year's award ceremony. I have a short speech. I hope my voice will last. I come from Warsaw, and the air was bad there in all senses of the term. So I hope I can make it. So I want to highlight a few milestones in the career, to tell you a bit where I came from, and to know how do you get where we are today in terms of changing or transforming agriculture and the food system. And as you know, we need to get away from the treadmill, which has been proposed or is being proposed still today, to some more sustainable ways of doing agriculture, of growing our food, and again, in a way that we don't have huge bill coming on for our children, and those bills, they will accumulate, as you all know, in the area of human, animal, plant, and also environmental health. Going back to '79, I remember always this interview with the Director General of the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. I was just about to finish my postdoc in Berkeley and looking for something to do, but something which was not going back to my own country, where I didn't feel that I would be very welcome with my new ideas about doing something different and using chemicals to combat pests. And as you know, a lot of these industries are based in Switzerland, and even today, there's very little being done in the area which I'm promoting in terms of sustainable agriculture. So we had a long interview. After 3 hours breakfast, I was offered a position in Nigeria, which I'd never been to Africa before. I didn't know that country. So I kindly asked then the Director General to give me an opportunity at least to go and look at the problem I was then asked to go and resolve. And that's why I had the chance to go to our friend Mukwege,'s country, called Zaire at the time, to look at the problem around Kinshasa and Brazzaville, where people were starting to starve already because they had lost basically the basis of their livelihood, both to eat, but also to make money, because, as you know, most people are farmers in these areas, and obviously there was no longer anything to sell, never mind to eat. I eventually accepted the job, and a huge challenge, but to resolve one of the largest problems I think Africa ever encountered in terms of agriculture and food security in particular. What we knew at the time when I started this work was very little about this problem. Cassava is the major root crop. It's a root you eat in Zaire, actually, or in DRC today. They also eat the leaves, which makes a very protein-rich spinach with a starchy root. And that plant came from the Americas, was imported by the Portuguese way back as sort of a staple which would grow well under any conditions across Africa. It became really eventually the staple of 200 million people across the continent, from Senegal all the way to Mozambique, where it grew without problem for a couple of centuries at least. But what happened eventually is that all of a sudden an insect appeared. Actually, they didn't even know it was an insect. They call it the maladie du cierge, which is sort of the candle disease, which basically killed the plants within one growing season. And when it killed the plant, it also killed the next harvest, because you use a piece of the stem to plant for the next season, a bit like potatoes. And sure enough, if there's no more stem, there's nothing to grow anymore. And so you can see the dramatic problem which people were facing. The insect was new to the continent because it too was introduced, but not knowingly, obviously accidentally, and because there was nothing there to stop it, because in nature everything is in balance if we don't go and make a mess out of it, as you know. So that balance was broken. Mealybugs spread very fast, and eventually brought cassava to its knees almost across the continent. So my job basically was to develop a strategy to bring this mealybug under control as fast as possible. And also, if you want to do something like that, you need money. So I was out there to also look for money. So not only was I there to look for beneficial insects for the mealybug, but also I was supposed to find all the money to do that research. Fortunately, way back then, that was sort of in between the pesticide disasters, so people said we need something different. So biological control, which is as old as more than 2,000 years actually, had a chance to have a sort of a revival at that time. So the strategy side, well, we knew that it must occur anywhere between Mexico and Argentina. And the insect is about like 3 millimeters long. And cassava grows all over the place. It's a wild form and a cultivated form. So you can imagine a little bit what the job was to go find it. Because nobody had seen it by then, okay? Nobody. The only know it was known for was from Africa. And so we knew that it must be somewhere because nobody had found the mealybug, so it was under control. So the job was actually then to go find those natural enemies somewhere in this really huge area. We also needed to organize a quarantine because if the idea was we're going to find this mealybug and the natural enemy, so we had to bring them to Africa, not creating yet another problem, so we had to go through quarantine. We did that in England. And then once you find what you need, you have to spread it. Now the area of cassava in Africa is 1.5 times the size of the United States. If you look at the map, you won't see that because Africa is over the tropics, always sort of compressed down very small, but it's a huge, huge area. So part of the puzzle, you know, to resolve the problem, we also needed laboratories, we needed people, so we needed a large team to do all this job. Not an easy thing, a task in a continent where, again, you have very little infrastructure to do all this. And again, as I said, there was a big urgency to do all this, so we needed, in addition to a team, again, the money. And my first meeting in Rome, where I tried to raise $30 million for 10 years to solve the problem, because I was sure we can solve it, I was labeled a megalomaniac by the US representative. So I said, all right, we'll see each other soon again, we'll see what happens. So we got the money, we started with the work. We got the teams together, and guess what? After, a year and a half, we had already found the mealybug. Again, thanks to what we knew from the literature, and again, working hard and fast throughout that continent, eventually we found the mealybug in the border areas between Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil. And on a research station, and guess what? Some of the scientists who worked there also worked in Africa. So you can make the conclusion on how the mealybug got from one place to the other very easily. So it was actually some scientists, plant breeders, who were in a hurry to improve cassava in Africa, who got around all the rules we know in science for transporting plant material, who started this problem. Anyway, we found the mealybug, we found the beneficial insects, we multiplied this by the million in a new lab. We had to build actually a new factory for insects. We developed equipment to actually release, to shoot these tiny mealybug, wasps, which are only about 2 millimeters big, out of aircrafts across the continent. And it took us about 12 years, only $20 million to solve the problem. And what's important about it is that it was solved permanently, actually without any contribution from the farmers themselves. Because these things were released from the air across the continent. We almost got shot down a couple of times by the military because they were wondering what is this aircraft doing over here. But eventually we managed in 12 years. And again, $20 million, so maybe I was thinking a bit big with 30 million, but it was done also in good time. So Here we are, having solved the problem, and not only solved the problem, because what we did at the same time, we trained more than, almost 1,500 people total in 24 countries who even today do biological control programs against mango mealybug, water weeds, and other pests if they are given the funding to do so. So we created a capacity in a continent which was lacking capacity and institutions because we created an institution. So eventually by 1994, so you see I started like 79, right? So by 94 I needed something new to do because you get restless after a while when things work. And so what happened is that I got a phone call one evening. I was in Cotonou and sort of almost getting ready to go back to the US because that became my new home. And I said, but I need somebody like you in Nairobi. Okay, so what can I do? Let's go to Nairobi. So I started my job there a few months later, taking over the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, which was actually developed and created by a famous African scientist, Professor Thomas Odiambo. So I had big shoes to fill there at that time and restart somehow this institution. And so we started also with a new paradigm because I learned a lot doing the mealybug. And one thing we learned doing this is that you have to work with the system, in the system to solve your problems. And so we developed this paradigm of human, animal, plant, and environmental health. And everything has to go in concert. You cannot solve one problem and not the others eventually. And because we work with insects, insects are key elements, all these 4 places. And so from agriculture, I went into health, or we work with malaria, the sleeping sickness, for example. We ended up in the environmental side, working with bees, pollination, silk moth. So trying to do, not only to kill bugs or control bugs, the bad ones, but also promote the good ones. So here we had this new paradigm going. What happened in between? All of a sudden I got a phone call from Dallas, another one from Des Moines. People started to notice that something good had been done by this major team of people working across the continent. And that actually is a couple of prizes. We gave some money to start the BioVision Foundation, who, as you know, is sort of the co-awardee here tonight. So with a bunch of friends, 4 of them, and actually 2 of them are here in the room, we created the BioVision Foundation because we realized that research is good, but I guess that you need also to do quite a bit of extension, get the message out. So we did that. We started the foundation, funding a number of projects, pushing out the information which farmers were lacking in order to start to grow more and better crops, in particular doing things more sustainably. And the foundation is using the same 4H, 4 times H approach, again in a spiral where we're helping people move out from the poverty, from their situation of lack of food security, moving up in life. But again, doing this for a while, you realize that you can work on the ground a lot. Women have a problem in boardrooms, right? They have this glass ceiling they can't get up because it's hard to break glass. Mostly if it's very hard glass, like it seems to be. And science is the same thing. Science can do certain things. If the policy environment is not right, it will just go only that far. And we hit that ceiling many, many times. So I decided now, time to do something else, go into policy and help actually change policies, not only in Africa, but again, I think we need to change policy on a global level to change things and to make really sure that in the long term, we do have a sustainable system in place which will take care not only of this generation, because we are too much thinking about ourselves right now, but also thinking about future generations. So for these changing policies, when you start to want to look 25 or maybe 50 years ahead, that's what we need to do. We cannot always think only 1 day ahead, or maybe 4, like many people do, as you know why. So that's difficult, and there are tools available, and we are helping now with my latest activities at the Millennium Institute to help government think in systems and long term. And that's the way I think we're going to get out of the mess we are in on a global scale with our climate change, but still a lot of people don't think it's really happening, as you know. With food security issues, how can we grow sustainably in the long term again, not in the short term? So again, we have this tool and we try to implement this, and hopefully not only in developing countries, but also in already industrial countries, because the system thinking process has to happen everywhere. And if we don't realize that if we do something here, something may happen over there, I think we are doomed. And again, we have the tools, we can do it, so I think we should really do it. So to conclude, over my time already, I'm not sure. I think about my vision and course of action for a thriving Earth can be seen in my present endeavors, again, and responsibilities, both at the BioVision Foundation, as well as at the Millennium Institute. And what our motto there is, a future for all, naturally. And that's what we are trying to promote, again, with this more systemic and harmony, or systemic and holistic vision, basically, of a harmonious living together on this planet. That's important. So we need peace, and as we hear from our colleagues tonight, peace is very, very important. So really, in the name of all the people who have helped me, because that's not something you can do on your own, who supported me all along this, supporting my crazy ideas sometimes and running too fast ahead over the years, and also the team from the BioVision Foundation. I want to thank the Right Livelihood Award jury members for this recognition and great honor. I am very humbled to be with this grand team here tonight. But the story would not be complete without expressing my thanks and love to my wife, Barbara, my children, Matthew and Jeremy, which are here. Daughter Giselle couldn't make it. She's in California right now. And also the teams of the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, at the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, and BioVision, that have helped, inspired, and motivated me along the way. Thank you very much.